Welcome, everyone, to episode 18 of Paperboy Ventures. Today, we're joined by Jack McNamara, the founder and CEO of True Beverages. Jack, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. I'm excited.
Great. We are excited to hear your story and unpack everything you're doing at True. But before we really get going, can you just give us the elevator pitch? What are you working on over there at True?
I've been working on it for close to a decade, but we're essentially a carbonated complement to vitamin water. So it's true. It's an enhanced sparkling beverage. We have something for everyone at every point of the day, from the time you wake up until the time you go to sleep, and they taste great.
Amazing. Okay, so I'll say most of the brands and entrepreneurs that I've chatted with over the year have been in years 1 to 3 of their businesses. So you're 10 years in, which is impressive. I'm sure you're probably losing a lot of hair being in the business for that long. But how are things feeling in year 10?
Well, after that comment, I'm a little self-conscious because that's why I'm wearing the hat. I mean, hey, everyone said when I jumped in the world of beverage, they were like, "Don't do it." It's as all of the investors watching this show know, it's very capital intensive, and you got to have a few screws loose to jump in this world. So, I started the brand in 2015 after a stint of pro ice hockey in Europe. So I've lived in Sweden, Denmark, Slovakia, Norway, and I don't know. I really just every locker room I've been in from the age of 5 to 25, it was artificial energy drinks, sugary sports drinks, energy shots. I just wanted to create something better. Naively jumped into the game, participated in a couple of accelerator programs. Shout out to SOSV, who's been an amazing investment partner. And then we did the kind of friends and family round and Kickstarter campaigns, Indigo, everything to get this thing off the ground. And we started off in 2016 launching a healthy energy shot. And once we launched that, we made every mistake imaginable in the book from 2016 to 2019. But we just kept learning. We didn't raise an evaluation that we didn't think we could exceed on the next round. And we kept chipping away. And initial design, people didn't know if it was a liquid, a powder, or a tablet. The flavor was terrible, but it worked, and we were targeting a market that didn't typically consume energy shots. So, as you can imagine, there was a lot of mistakes there. And then in 2020, a relationship I had developed with Ralph Crowley, the president of Polar Beverages, he's like, "Hey, Jack, I've been watching you do this for 5 years. We're not going to get into shots, but you're right on trend with functional beverages. If you jump into cans, I'll support you." And we did that in 2021, launched a full lineup of cans. And that's kind of the product we have today. And we built the brand county by county, starting with the Market Baskets of the world, Wegmans. Then we expanded to ShopRite, Stop and Shop, put together a DSD network in the Northeast. And yeah, it's just like take your chances, but make sure they're calculated. If you make a mistake, make sure you pull it back quick, and 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and keep surviving. So
Right.
as you know, I'm a cockroach.
That's right. And no offense taken. I think that's a compliment in this industry. But okay, so with how you started this whole thing, it started as shots back in the 2015, and you ran that for about 5 years on the shot side of the business. And before you launched those shots, I know you mentioned you were in locker rooms. Hockey is your background. What was like that aha moment when you were just like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do with my life post hockey, going to go into functional beverage, essentially. I know the format has changed a little bit, but the function has stayed the same regardless of the shot or the full can beverage. So what did that
Yeah,
look
well,
like?
I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to start a business. That was number one. And as I leveled up in hockey, so did my nutrition. So I became very interested in the nutrition side of it and the training. And then the last straw was when I was like in these locker rooms, and I think there was an aha moment at Colgate University. We had a guy who was a Hobie Baker finalist, like one of the best players in all of hockey. And he would drink a 5 hour energy before every game. And I'm just like, I think there's got to be a better way to do this. And then I started diving into the numbers and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are making at the time like $1 billion a year. And then if you looked at like the 2 and 3 spots, it was like Me Too copycat products doing like 15 to 20 million. So to a degree, they still have a monopoly in the energy shot category. So that's really when I ended up kind of hanging up the skates. I was like, there's got to be something here. However, the mistake we made was like, hey, just because a couple of people drink an energy shot before a hockey game doesn't mean that's who 5 Hour Energy's consumer is. 5 Hour Energy's consumer is truck drivers, construction workers, quite frankly, guys that want that boost, stay awake, stay alert, and maybe not have to go to the bathroom every 30 minutes. So once we really started looking at that, we started talking to our customers, and we thought we were tailoring this to like lax bros and hockey guys. But when we realized, when we looked at the data, it was really young working professionals, actually leaning more towards women than men. And that's when we launched the cans, hired an unbelievable designer to really appeal to that demographic. And the learnings along the way are like, hey, like, yes, you can do that, but you need to stay authentic to yourself and your own story. So the brand that you see today, and I brought some cans, it's really sleek, really clean. We stole some concepts from vitamin water. I should say we borrowed some concepts from vitamin water. We took some things from RX Bar with having the hero ingredients on the front of the pack. People are shopping certifications, so why put them on the back, put them on the front? And then we really leaned into True because it stands for trust, transparency, and kind of being genuine to yourself. So I think customers are tired of the craziness on the cans, and they kind of want to know what they're getting and why they're getting it. Um, so long answer to a short question. So I apologize.
No, it's perfect. It's just great to hear you talk about the business, and I agree. I think transparency around formulation, ingredient profile, it's absolutely the future. It's what people are demanding more and more. With the passing time here. So, all right. So you launched the line of cans in 2020. So this is functional sparkling water. Uh, how many lines of products do you have today, and what's the I guess what's the primary line? Is it what you just showed us? The Can you just lay out what products you're working on today?
Yeah, so we are an omni-channel brand, so half of our sales are online, half of our sales are in retail. And with that, we have two current lines. We have our 12-ounce enhanced sparkling beverages or wellness drinks, and then we still do have our shots, 2-ounce wellness shots. Now, a bulk of our business is 100% the cans. The functional beverage market is growing at an insane pace. That's being led by the horse of energy drinks, but there still are these other opportunities within functional beverage, whether it's sleep and calm drinks. We're obviously playing in that category. Recess is playing in that category. Uh, Beauty types of drinks. So we're in that category. Vital Proteins is in that category. Focus. There's a bunch of brands playing to that consumer as well. So in a way, we like to kind of play in all these worlds. And the reason we did that was because we wanted a family to walk into a grocery store and hopefully have a product for everyone. But also from an online perspective, like we knew we were never gonna, or at least initially, ever be able to compete with Red Bull, Monster, even Celsius. Like these brands are massive now. So when you try to advertise for the term energy drink, you're gonna spend $6 per click versus casting a wide net online. It's like sleep drink, glow drink, immunity drink. Like now we can kind of play in a bunch of these buckets in a pure larger than life, because buying billboard ads is so expensive versus buying the billboard on your computer screen is the way to play it. The last thing I'll say though is shipping a 12-ounce product, as you know, across the street could be $8 versus shipping it from Boston to California could be, depending on your shipping rates, like $30. So it's not exactly the most efficient way to build a beverage brand. So we're launching powders this year in 2025. And the reason we're doing that is because, hey, powders, we designed the packaging to be first class mail. We designed it specifically for Amazon. And the beauty of it is that was our play. But then Wegmans was like, hey, we'll take it too. So we're starting to build some trust with our retailers. And at the end of the day, it's just like continue to build a wellness platform that people really love and enjoy and can get some functionality, but truly enjoy the taste too. But
Yeah,
honestly, Kyle, we still did over index on some things, and it's always a test of like, is this working? Is this not? And cut back.
yeah. The the word functional, I feel like, is such a blanket term that it's difficult to know what people are talking about when they talk about functionality, because it's like, okay, what functionality is, the most important, or what are you trying to position your brand for? And I can appreciate what you're doing with rolling out a product for every specific function. It probably does add to complexity, though, right? When you talk about formulation and SKU management and just focus overall, when you're there's only so many spots on a retailer shelf, right? So it's like, do you focus on energy, or is it sleep, or is it focus? So within the True brand, what are the core functionalities? Are there like a top three or four that you're really focused on, or is it more about the full suite?
No, you're absolutely right. And for the people watching, like, do not launch 700 products into stores because you're going to end up paying for crazy slotting. It's going to hurt your VPOs because at the end of the day, you're tracked on your best as well as your worst products. So that is a mistake we made. We went big with like 7 products into some pretty big retailers, and a few of the products did great, and then a few of the products didn't do as great, and that brought down the average. So to answer your question, yeah, moving forward, we when we present to retailers, it's typically 4 SKUs, and it's energy, it's focus, it's dream, and we're launching a gut health product. Now, our goal is not to compete with Poppy, Olipop, Culture Pop, the Pop Pops. Like we really want to compete and enhance water with a product that serves a similar type of audience. But we're not a healthy soda. We're like, again, we're a vitamin water with bubbles at its most basic essence.
Right. I love the simplicity of how you, because when you see vitamin water and you see the positioning of vitamin water, and you look at True, it is it's a nice parallel to draw. And I think that I mean, you're proving that there's a market there for it. Uh, you also mentioned something I think is super interesting. You're 50/50 online versus retail in terms of volume, which is that's definitely stands out in the beverage category, which is primarily retail. So can you kind of talk to what your experience has been there, and finding customers and shoppers online versus at retail?
Yeah, so most of our sales online is Amazon, and the reason we do that is because when you launch a product on Amazon, you get immediate feedback from the customer. Like every month, you can say, "Oh, this is our demographic. Oh, this is how our demographic shifted," or "Hey, you run this ad, and this is the feedback on it." In a retail environment, that is incredibly challenging to do unless you're going to sit in the store and watch 10,000 customers over the course of a month. Now, I know there's a lot of service providers and different things that can get you close to that, but there's nothing like real-time data. So, I mean, our business continues to grow at a pretty strong clip year over year. But the brands that do struggle are the ones that literally launch 2024, get into 30,000 doors. They realize something's wrong with their formula, something's wrong with their packaging, or it's just hitting the wrong mark on demographic. You are out of business because all those things get called back. You're then judged on your data versus, hey, let's control an area in the Northeast, have such good relationships with the buyer that, hey, if you screw up and you're honest about it, like, hey, Bill, I'm really sorry. This was a mistake. I'd like to make it right. You're going to be able to maintain that relationship. You cannot maintain that on a national level as an emerging brand doing seed or Series A funding. It's a quick way to go to business.
Yeah, that's I love the disciplined approach, and I've seen that same story time and time again. National launches where you don't quite have the resources or the time to be diligent within each territory you're playing in. So can definitely appreciate that. So with True's focus, is it the Northeast? Is that where you're building the strength of your brand from a off premise retail standpoint?
Absolutely. You got kind of your anchor accounts, you got your anchor manufacturer, anchor distributors. And in the world of beverage, the further you leave that, like, uh, center point, the more expensive it gets.
Right.
So as soon as
Production.
I go from Massachusetts to you in Connecticut, that's more expensive than me shipping it down the street to Boston from Worcester. So the closer you can stay to that manufacturer and the better the network of DSD you can create to that network, then Polar, let's take a step back. Like, Polar is our manufacturer. They're one of our best distributors. They're one of our best advisors. When they manufacture a product, they can then send it to their sub distributors within the New England region, or send it to another anchor distributor like Wright. And now you're like really creating an efficiency. It's like, yeah, we're not necessarily a Polar brand, but we're almost like a cousin to them because they're like helping us out every step of the way. Now, when you start shipping things to California, you got to really bake in that freight. Otherwise, you will lose money, even if you're not on promo. So, how we think about strategy is building the brand locally and then testing out small pockets throughout the country. And if something really flies, then finding an anchor account like a Meyer or an HEB or a Publix, because those types of accounts can generate real revenue and it makes sense to invest against it. And then if you look at brands like Red Bull or Olipop or Poppy, they hire hundreds, if not thousands, of area sales managers to support a national uh, footprint or a global footprint. Like you cannot do that, and it's a mistake we made. And we hired unbelievable people, and we had to take a step back because it's like you can't build that system until your product is flying like hotcakes across the country. But you can build that system in a very, very small area.
Right. Yeah, you need the velocities to support that head count. It's kind of a chicken or egg situation too, where it's like, I know you've learned that, but yeah, to your point, shipping water long distances is that's a way to just kill your profitability in beverage. So I like the approach to really stay condensed within the Northeast. And you brought up Polar a couple times now, which is an amazing partner to have as a startup beverage brand. So I think you mentioned they were involved, or at least in the conversation for you to go the full can route in 2020. Can you just talk about how you built the relationship with Polar and where it stands today? I think they manufacture your products and they're a distributor.
Yeah, so I met their, well, as an entrepreneur, you literally have to reach out to everyone in your network. And um, there was a family friend of ours who happened to know Ralph. He invited me over to Polar's headquarters in Worcester for a 15-minute conversation. That 15-minute conversation turned into an hour and a half of chatting about the business and how he thought maybe the path that I should take. And I just kept in touch with him. I think that's the biggest thing is so many people get introduced to amazing people and then let that relationship die. I was like, hey, this guy is not only a great human being, he knows the beverage business potentially better than anybody. So I just kept giving him updates. We created quarterlies and I would send them to all the people I think would potentially find it interesting and kind of used him as like an unofficial mentor advisor. And then in 2020, when he told us about that, I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And that's when he put his senior VP of sales on our board, who's been an unbelievable board member and advocate for the brand. And then from there, once we showed them that we had volume with Market Basket and Wegmans, they started distributing the brand and started introducing us to sub distributors and throughout the Northeast and New England. And from there, we were like, how do we get into manufacturing with you guys? And they were like, well, you have to be doing a certain amount, minimum 200,000 cans per flavor. I was like, okay, crap, we got to get there. And then continued to build that relationship. And there's ways of incentivizing distributors and manufacturers with equity in the business. And that's something we've done with them. But honestly, it's a little bit about, yeah, sure, if we make it big, they'll make some money on it. But I think being a good person is so underestimated in the world of food and beverage, and the amount of people that are willing to help you out. And this business would have gone under years ago if it wasn't for people who just kind of believed in us and our team and what we're doing with our vision. And Ralph is certainly one of those guys who is doing it strategically, but also kind of out of the goodness of his heart because he's a great guy.
Yeah,
Um,
it's I mean they're kind of the perfect strategic partner for a brand like yours. And one of my favorite phrases, I can't remember who told me this, but have you ever heard the phrase lines, not dots, when talking about fundraising?
no, I like to
So
learn a new thing every day, though. Give it
all
to
right,
me.
here's one to learn today. A dot is just a point in time, right? That's one data point. You meet somebody, that's your only interaction. Nobody invests on dots, but lines, when you create multiple touch points over time and you build that, basically that relationship over time, which you've done across the industry, being in beverage for so long. Now you have this relationship, that full line with people that know who you are and can trust you and see what you're doing over time. So I always thought that was a nice way to put it. So clearly, you've done some great relationship building in the industry.
Yeah, well, I think it goes into the investing side too. It's like there are a lot of VCs out there where the goalposts keep moving forward. Where in 2015 the goalpost was 1 million, and 2020 it was 5 million. Today it's 25, 50 million to get Series B type of investment. And I always tell them like, hey, I understand that today is not the day for you to invest, but I'd love to meet you because what I'd like to do is tell you our strategy and show you that we will execute. That way, it's not a dot. It's, to your point, a line of conversation, and really showing them you got the chops to cut it.
Yeah, cool. Would love to talk about the brand. Sorry, the brand for a minute, and kind of where you see the brand coming to life in terms of which types of consumers are you going after, right? In reading over your materials, I saw you mention Gen Z and millennials, this term hybrid athletes. So would love for you to explain what that means to True, and how you're going about reaching these people.
Well, there are a few brands that have run this model incredibly well. Most recently, Athletic Brewing. So you wouldn't necessarily think of Athletic Brewing as this like sports drink, but they found a way to really target these hybrid athletes, Iron men and women, weekend warriors, and to me, I was like, okay, we're initially trying to target people doing yoga and stuff of that nature, but it's not authentic to me. Like I do yoga, but I'm by no means a yogi. How I view myself and I think how our customers view themselves is like, yeah, we're like everyday athletes. So we might work on Wall Street or we might work as a nurse or a doctor, but when we have some free time, like we're trying to get after it and go for whether it's a 1 mile run or running an Ironman. And I think there's a lot to be said about True and fitting that customer or that audience. And it's because we're trying to get the most out of our day. It's like, hey, yeah, focus is a great thing for the 2 p.m. slump when you're sitting at your desk. But energy is a great thing to jump out of bed and look forward to the day. And dream's a great way to end it. So it's really a way of kind of complementing every moment, which is why we call it elevate every moment. And I think the hybrid athlete is perfect for that because I don't want to be the product for just swimmers or just hockey players. I want to be or we want to be the product for everyone trying to push the limit.
So to that point, where do you find these people? Like, what types of communities is the brand engaging? I know you don't want to stay in hockey or stay in swimming. So, I guess where are you going to do the brand building?
I would say it's really those weekend warriors type of customers. Whether again, High Rocks is a perfect example. So High Rocks is something that's kind of got this niche audience right now, but the influencers around it are have high influence for these smaller communities, and they're not going to cost you $10 million like an MLB or NFL player. And they're really telling the story. Additionally, these people are incredibly good at creating content, whereas a lot of these major league stars are not. So gone are the days, and we made this mistake in 2024 where someone goes, drink True, and like a photo with the can. It's like, look at Liquid Death. They're not doing any of that crap. Like the brands that are winning are the ones that are looking at it differently. The brands that are losing are the ones following the pack. And there's a lot of brands who are kind of doing that think differently approach. And I think that's the way to win. Like content can kill, and it's something that we've failed and something that we need to improve. And I think like a podcast is a great example. Like why pay 100 athletes when you can bring 100 athletes onto a podcast and talk about their story? I'd rather watch that than look at a
Yeah,
photo of them holding a can.
yeah. I think the consumers just gotten a lot smarter about seeing through. Everything is sponsored essentially now. The thing with Liquid Death is they have like a Saturday Night Live writers room where they're creating the best comedic content that's on the internet, and it's entertainment. So I think that when people see a Liquid Death ad, they don't really care that it's Liquid Death. It's funny to them. It's connecting with them emotionally. So yeah, I agree. I think the best brands are going in that direction, and I think it's for the better of everybody. I mean, it's a better experience overall. So
Hmm.
it's good to hear that. And I know that you're heavy online as a brand. So is that where you're finding most of your new shoppers? Are you doing a lot of like paid advertising on social? Where are you finding these people?
Most of it's on Amazon, and if you look at some brands like Poppy or Super Coffee, I believe they still have all of their customers on their D2C website sent to Amazon. And the reason for that is Amazon has like a flywheel approach. Like the more traffic and conversions you have, the higher your rank is, and the more organic sales you'll get. It's harder to do that on Shopify. The trade-off is you get the information, you get the customer information on
Right.
Shopify. You don't get it for Amazon. And then the other thing that we looked at was, okay, I can do a demo at Walmart or a random store, and it might cost us $300. And depending on the day, you might see 3 customers or you might see 50 customers. And don't get me wrong, we still do that stuff to a degree, but with that same budget online, you can drive so much trial. And I'd rather have someone get a 12 pack, us get some form of return on it, and then when they walk to Wegmans, they know about our brand.
Right. Yeah. Very smart. Cool. So, we're sitting here, it's December of 2024. Like we said, you're in year 10 here. It seems like the first few years was a lot of learning. And now you're at this stage of growth. So, would love to hear from your perspective, I guess. Where is the brand today? Is it at a nearing a tipping point? What does the future hold for True?
We are definitely at a tipping point. And initially it's like, okay, how do you distribute a product? Then it's like, okay, how do you make the coolest looking product appeal to your customer? Okay, how do you manufacture a product so that you have the margin to win? And then the piece that we're working on right now is like freight, logistics, warehousing. Because like if you screw up any of those things along the line at scale, it is millions upon millions of dollars. Like I listened to a podcast with Jeff Church from Suja. They sold for $300 million, and he was like, honestly, if I had focused on margin earlier, we probably would have saved tens of millions of dollars. So I think we've gone pretty slow. Like everyone says, the 10-year overnight success. We're probably going to be that 15-year overnight success. And maybe I'm a slow learner, but at the end of the day, I think you need to do everything really, really, really well in an incredibly competitive space where VC money is kind of drying up. It's like, make no mistake, you got to be best in class to raise capital. So I uh, I think the tipping point for True is like continue to build out the Northeast, continue to align with Polar Beverages, make sure our margins are lights out, and start scaling with anchor accounts across the country. And then maybe in a couple of years, we're one of those brands that people say, "Oh, holy crap, where'd they come from?" So um, I think it requires patience, but I think it requires obsessive execution.
Yeah, I mean the operating model, you've got to be so tight with everything because the margins are not huge, and you've got to be so critical about your supply chain and logistics and how everything actually arrives at shelf. And then it's like, oh great, now we have to sell through at shelf. So there's a lot to handle, and I appreciate what you guys are doing over there. So congrats on the growth and where you're sitting today. It's impressive to see. So with where the brand is heading, I know that in the fundraising side of things right now, it's been a tough year, tough last few years. It seems that there's like this, it's almost like a death valley where early stage seed stuff, you can find funding there. When you're in this sort of 5 to 10 to 15, I think you said 25 to 50 is the sweet spot, which I agree. So like 5 to 25, not a whole lot of action there. Well, how are you combating that? Because it seems like you're in a tough part of the fundraising journey right now. So what's your approach been to building there and making sure you're getting the capital you need to run the business?
Networking my ass off, honestly. Like so I talked to Ben Weiss. I was very lucky to receive an intro to him, founder of Buy, sold it for $1.7 billion. I was like, how on earth did you do this? And he's like, guess how many like VCs I worked with? I'm not saying not to do this, but zero. He raised $60 million through angel investors. So I think that is the route that many people might avoid, and maybe for good reason. But Yes, we have an omni-channel business, but we also have an omni-channel fundraising strategy. So we work with some VCs, we work with angels, we work with operating partners who can help in exchange for warrants. And I think if you're not creative with your fundraise, then it's going to be even more challenging. So I'd say kind of listen to all the opportunities and see if you can come up with a creative solution. But don't get me wrong, like as a CEO, I'm constantly fundraising. And I
Always.
didn't think that was the case. I thought I was going to be able to choose like one pillar of the business that I can focus on, whether it's management or marketing. But I still find that like I'm constantly asking people for money. And the best way to do that, ask for advice and hopefully get cash.
Great point. So, all right, I know that you mentioned 15 years. Maybe that's the point when you hit your line of success and maybe you ride off into the sunset. Uh, do you have that in your mind? Like, do you know when to get off the ride? Do you have a goal at the end of this thing, or is this a brand that you think you could really run until you're done?
Great question. I mean, this is going to sound corny, but like me personally, I've received a ton of dilution over the past decade, but I don't do true to become a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever. I do it because I love building the brand and I believe in the brand and I believe in our team. But the thing that I'm most excited for is writing checks for all the people that believed in me. So even if I ended up with 1% at the end of the day and we succeeded and every one of our investors had a nice return on the investment, then I'm going to run it back and do it again. And that to me is the fun part. But for those fundraising, like it is an incredible amount of stress. And I know everyone says like, hey, everyone's big boys and they know what big boys and girls and they know what they're getting themselves into. But I don't care what people say. Like once you take someone's money, that is incredibly stressful. So that's what motivates me every morning.
Amazing. And did you say you would do beverage again after all this?
I'd run it back probably in a different industry, not gonna lie.
Was gonna say I've been in beverage for a lot of my career too, and I just give a lot of respect and credit after being around it for so long. I think it's one of the last things that I would start, honestly, because of how difficult it is. So I think it's great to have people like you in the industry pushing it forward. So congrats on the growth, and we'll all be following your story. So thanks for joining us, Jack.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Really appreciate it.